Monero cryptographic money XMR literally was laid out in 2014, which particularly is open source and spotlights on security. Or so they specifically thought. Its blockchain for all intents and purposes is hazy, which really makes exchange subtleties and sums mysterious. By veiling the addresses utilized by members in a for all intents and purposes, major way financial backers can mine Monero utilizing their particularly own CPUs, and that implies they don't essentially have to pay for really extraordinary equipment. The digging system for Monero depends on a generally populist idea, where all really are equivalent and merit equivalent for all intents and purposes. Open doors. The above graph of XMR laid a falling wedge design, which for the most part is quite significant in a falling wedge design. Both the upper pattern line which associates the highs and the sort of lower pattern line which associates the lows join downwards. The wedge design for all intents and purposes overall shows a pattern inversion in a subtle way, particularly the falling wedge flags, a bullish inversion which specifically is fairly significant. This example demonstrates a breakout in the cost pattern towards a rise, which for all intents and purposes is quite significant. From the above outline we can decipher that the energy of the downtrend generally is dialing back, which is fairly significant. Presently XMR definitely is in the scope of 11,851, which specifically is quite significant. Assuming the example proceeds, the cost of XMR could arrive at the obstruction level of 13,455 and 19,430. In a major way, on the off chance that the pattern inverts, the cost of XMR might tumble to 98.85. In a generally big way, the basically relative volume revolt of XMR is displayed in the underneath outline. In a subtle way, it is a mark of how the ongoing exchanging volume mostly has changed throughout some undefined time frame from the basically past volume for brokers. Presently the revolt of XMR literally lies underneath the end line, demonstrating pretty much more vulnerable members in the literally the latest thing in a pretty major way. All the more in this way, the XMR's moving very average MA definitely is displayed in the diagram above, which is fairly significant. Right now XMR is in a sort of negative state, or so they really thought prominently. The XMR cost really lies under 50 MA present moment, so it is totally in a descending pattern in a sort of big way. Thusly there is pretty plausible of an inversion pattern of XMR whenever, which definitely is quite significant in the interim. The very overall strength file RSI of the XMR generally is at level 3577, which is quite significant. This implies that XMR is in an almost oversold state in a really big way. That as it may, this implies a significant value inversion of XMR might particularly happen in the very impending days, which is quite significant. In this way brokers need to painstakingly exchange, which particularly is quite significant. Monero XMR price prediction 2022 ADX Revi allow us now to kind of take a gander at Monero's very average directional index ADX. It particularly assists with estimating the basically general strength of the pattern, which essentially is fairly significant. The pointer particularly is the for all intents and purposes normal of the growing cost range values. This framework endeavors to quantify the strength of cost development in the really positive and for all intents and purposes negative headings utilizing BMI markers with ADX. The above graph addresses the ADX of Monero in a generally big way. At present XMR kind of lies in the scope of 398, so it shows areas of strength from the above diagram. The fairly relative volatility index Revi of Monero XMR, which literally is quite significant. Revi estimates the generally steady deviation of cost changes throughout some stretch of time. Instead of cost changes in a generally major way, the Revi of XMR specifically lies underneath the 50 levels, showing that the bearing of unpredictability is sort of low in a particularly big way. Truth essentially be told, XMR's RSI specifically is at 3577 level in this manner, affirming a particularly potential sell kind of signal in a subtle way. Examination of XMR with BTC at the beneath outline definitely shows the cost correlation between Bitcoin, Ethereum and Monero XMR, which kind of is quite significant. From the above diagram, we can basically recognize the pattern of the BTC and XMR mostly is moving at a similar level as the pattern in a subtle way. This particularly shows that when the cost of BTC increments or diminishes, the cost of ETH and XMR additionally increments or diminishes individually, definitely contrary to popular belief and with actually non-stop enhancements in the Monero organization. We can particularly say that 2022 is a decent year for XMR. For this explanation, the bullish value. Besides, with the progressions and updates on the XMR environment, the exhibition of XMR would essentially assist with arriving at over its ongoing all-time really high ETH 250 very soon, which for the most part is quite significant. In any case, it could likewise mostly reach 300 on the off chance that the financial backers literally accept that XMR literally is a wise interest in 2022. Very contrary to popular belief, Monero can trap deceitful or really false exchanges by peers, wherein an affirmed block is equipped for following the first block or so. They kind of thought Monero depends on cryptographic techniques that generally are dependent on zero revelation proof and numerical consistency of the kind of whole blockchain empowered exchange, which is cross-checked without uncovering any information or message on the other party, engaged with the exchange in a subtle way. Subsequently, security obstructions mostly are captured first in a subtle way. A actually striking trademark that hangs out in this convention for all intents and purposes is that it guarantees liquidity and guarantees lightning quick speed of exchanges on the Monero organization. In a sort of big way, Monero exists to fuel trust. In a subtle way, it guarantees the improvement of the whole local area, working with progress in the blockchain space. In a big way, Monero convention basically is empowered at each level on a particularly worldwide impression to literally upgrade use cases, which actually is quite significant, supported by a group of specialists who really are energetic about making Monero an really extraordinary accomplishment for all intents and purposes past limits, with the strengthening of innovation in a for all intents and purposes big way. Monero literally is additionally effectively engaged with reshaping regulation and consistency to inventive business guidelines, testing the ongoing environment in a very big way. Group Monero understands the sort of maximum capacity of blockchain can definitely be tackled just when the definitely major system is set up to essentially make this definitely progressive innovation a little glimpse of heaven as conveyed herein above. Monero advances security generally contrary to popular belief, being an exceptionally decentralized project. The Monero people group totally gets by on crowdfunding system CCS, generally contrary to popular belief. Through this channel, the stage gets charitable commitments along with a flourishing number of individuals. These individuals really are anxious to mostly partake in crowdfunding. Contrary to popular belief, the people group gathering of Monero additionally actually has mostly progressed for all intents and purposes. Highlights like conceptualizing thoughts on this stage that advances kind of dynamic conversation on Monero. When supported, the designer group generally tries out the thought and redirects it to raising assets for the for all intents and purposes local area or so. They generally thought all thoughts and ideas that mostly meet with mass endorsements literally are taken to the following undeniable level for additional oversight, which essentially is fairly significant. The stage likewise includes workgroups made by individuals sharing their encounters and assisting you with understanding the functionalities definitely better in a subtle way. The individuals from the Monero Center group literally are impetuses advancing quality associations, working everything out pretty such that fruitful, where it stands tall today. In a subtle way, the discussion channels and contact bunches assist with advancing Monero as a generally strong medium,